Welcome to Thursday Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. This week, I'm speaking with Stephanie Houston, president and co-founder of Island Getaway Rum, which are island-inspired and Texas-made down in Dripping Springs, Texas. Stephanie's family comes from the Canary Islands by way of Mexico to Texas over 100 plus years ago. She's the first Latina rum producer in the state of Texas and beyond. We discuss how to ask for help as you embark on any new adventure, and as in her case now, they jump into brand building and distribution as a new brand picked up from RNDC by way of LibDib. Congratulations, team. That's huge. That's awesome. Woohoo! She's built and sold businesses as big as nearly 700 people and owned and run a music venue to help revive Deep Ellum. She then moved to Austin to recharge and think about her new venture. Soon after, she found her place as an owner with Island Getaway Rums, and she's never looked back. Stephanie is a strong entrepreneur dedicated not only to her brand, but also an activist in celebrating and lifting up other women and Latina-owned companies. She truly believes when you help one grow, you help them all rise up together. The rums are extremely high quality with a beautiful package and branding, and for the retail price, it's second to none. It's one of the best deals in the market. Do not miss this opportunity to try these rums, or potentially invest in one of the best products and certainly the best rums in the market. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursday Thursday. My name is Jesse Ott, and I have Stephanie Houston here of Island Getaway Rums. Hi, Stephanie. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to have you on. So we met, 4 weeks ago, maybe, in Irving?
I think so. It might have even been a week or two longer. But yes, we met at Cocina Sabrosa, which was great for me. We were right in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. So it was a great time to introduce Island Getaway Rum to all of our hopefully new fans.
Yeah, no, it was a great showing. I was lucky enough to be invited to go and check it out. And I had met Stephanie through Jurgen, who organized the event on LinkedIn, and then met her actually at the show. He made a point to introduce me to her because I, of course, wanted to interview her, right? Because she's so interesting and she's got a great story. So that's kind of how it happened. So I'm super pumped we were able to make it because I know you've been traveling and on the road since then, and an awesome trip to Spain. So how was that?
The trip to Spain was interesting. We have a partnership with the Texas Department of Agriculture, and it's as an agricultural producer here in the United States, it's the Department of Ags are always so amazing to work with, and so this was a trade opportunity to be able to export into Spain and some of the European countries surrounding Spain. So the trip was amazing. It was a quick 4 days, so it was definitely like in and out fast.
Oh yeah.
Someplace along the line, I picked up COVID, and so it
was no,
because I feel like I'm still kind of recovering from that a few weeks later. But I think overall, the trip was really great. I never know how the trips are going to be great. And in this one in particular, I'm not sure that the business opportunity was there for us. But one of the other producers from Texas actually used to work for one of the big giants in the liquor industry. And so it was really awesome to hear from her different things that we could be doing. And she lives here in Conroe. So we can.
No way. Yeah, what are the chances?
Well, she was on the trade mission with me as, we were looking to do business in Spain together. And so again, like having that knowledge from one of the giant companies, from big rum brands, to be able to come in and say like, hey, have you thought about doing this? Or maybe you should think about this, or, like we're a supplier. And we're having to navigate some waters that are unusual for us because we're having to operate as a sales team as additionally. So we don't just make it, we have to make it and sell it. which typically was the job of the distributor or someone else, right? And so we're having to step into that role and learn how to do it. And so I always love the opportunity to learn from somebody that was the best in the business. Like, hell yeah, like I want to know about that.
Absolutely. You got to take help where you can. And one theme that's been very consistent on this podcast is that people in our industry are really willing to take the time to help other people. You know, we definitely have this philosophy is, you know, there's something for everyone, right? You'll fit somewhere, no matter what.
And that's the thing is I think, you know, just a basic rule of entrepreneurship is, you know, to ask for help in any place, and you just never know where you're going to use that. And I think for me, again, like prior to this, I was in the liquor industry on the other side, like in the on-premise side. And so again, just even understanding like how to operate as a producer. Now we're coming up on 8 years. Like, sure, we're really great at being a producer, but we've never had distribution the way we have it now. We've never had opportunities to export like we do now. And so we're learning the ropes. And so it's like you just said, like we need help in every place we can possibly get it. And so I always have this kind of outlook of like, listen, I am not ashamed anymore to ask for help. Like, please, someone tell us how to do this so we stop making mistakes. Like that's the best advice I can ever give to any aspiring entrepreneur is like ask for help and get it because you're going to need it.
Yep. No matter how you're navigating, right?
Exactly. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're going to need it. There's no shame in learning from someone that has experience versus, you know, trial and error. Trial and error is not a great way to do things. It is a way, but it's not the best way.
Yeah, for sure. So where are you calling from today?
So I'm in Austin, Texas. My distillery, Island Getaway Rum, is actually in Dripping Springs, Texas, so just a few miles from here. But I live in Austin, and prior to us moving to Dripping Springs, we were located in a little town called High, Texas. And then we were there.
Yeah, that's where Garrison Brothers is located, right?
They're good friends. So we moved. We were in High for 5 years, moved to Dripping Springs 2 years ago. But I lived in Austin the entire time. So I spent a lot of years commuting, put a lot of miles on my car, and then just kind of realized like, hey, I'd love for us to get closer to home because we're spending a lot of time in our cars, which is great if you're out selling, but it's not great if you're just commuting to work.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So where are you originally from, Stephanie?
So I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. I was born there. My family has been in Texas for, gosh, I don't know, 100 plus years. We are part of the movement, you know, from the Canary Islands all the way into Mexico and into Texas. And it's really interesting because, of course, there were indigenous people here, but the first settlers of like a modern township or whatever you want to call it, they were from the Canary Islands. And so there's a big legacy of, you know, Spanish explorers coming down through the Canary Islands, going down through the Yucatan Peninsula and the Caribbean. That's where a lot of the rum came from, you know, sugarcane came from the Canary Islands. And then down into the Yucatan and up through Mexico to Monterrey, Reynosa, and up through into what is now modern day Texas. But I think, you know, when people ask me, I claim 3 places. Of course, San Antonio, place, Dallas, where I grew up my whole life, and then Austin, where I went to college and where I currently live. So I think I've spent the most time in Dallas, 35 years there, going to school and being raised in a little, it's not really a suburb, it's more like an area of Dallas called Oak Cliff, just south of Dallas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oak Cliff girl.
Nice area.
All day.
Oh, nice.
And then
I love it.
I went to UT in the early 90s. And then, so I spent 15 years back in Austin total, including my college. So whenever somebody says, I'm from Austin, I go, oh, I'm from Austin. Or when they say I'm from Dallas, I go, oh, I'm from Dallas. You know, so,
and people are like, huh? Where were you born? Oh, San Antonio. What?
I was there. So Texas girl through and through.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what got you started in the business after? So, you went to UT Austin, which is an amazing school, by the way. Congratulations. I know it's really hard to get in there.
It's one of those things. Like I went to UT, like I mentioned, from I think it was in like 91 to 96. And at the time, Austin was still kind of it was a lot smaller than it was now. And so at the time, the way that it worked is when you came here from another city, you went back to your home city because there weren't any jobs here, which is hilarious to say today because Austin is such a big booming tech city now. Like it's interesting to see like how it's grown over the last few decades. But so I went back home, and when I went home to Dallas, I started doing some things that were related to my degree. My degree's in history, so liberal arts with a business minor. And I started working for the Dallas Museum of Natural History, and then kind of just quickly learned that the research job that I thought I was going to do was actually just, taking being a cashier there. And again, nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't really what I had studied, and definitely couldn't.
No, not at all. That's really unbelievable. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, that's just how it works. So
Yeah.
I started working for my family. My family is rich in entrepreneurship, but then I started, kind of branching out on my own and getting into different things. I worked for ITT Tech for a while. I worked for a medical staffing company for a while, and was really good at sales. And so myself and a few partners broke off from that company. We started our own company in 2001. And in, I think like 2006, we were the fastest growing staffing company in the United States. So we sold that company in 2008, which was great. It was right before the economy crashed.
Yes. Good timing.
And I think like at the time we had 106 like internal employees and maybe like 600 plus out in the field. So we had a lot of employees at the time, and it was a good sized company. And so I was able to take my proceeds. Again, I had partners, and so we split that, and then we split a lot of it with the IRS. But take
right.
Start some fun projects, and one of the ones that I started was in Deep Ellum. Back in it would have been probably 2000, sold in 2008, so maybe like 2009. Deep Ellum was going through this really cool resurgence, and so I started the music venue down there with some of the other kind of pioneers of that second resurgence. And we helped kind of get Deep Ellum, up and rolling in some really great ways, culturally, and then also just musically, which is
that's awesome.
Came from, right? Deep Ellum had a rich history of music and blues and just so much culture. And then it went through a little bit of a decline in the 90s, and so it was nice to kind of like bring it back to life a little bit, very small contributions, but still. And so one of my colleagues that I knew from the area had a winery, and fast forward a few years, I was doing the music business, and I was doing a lot of different projects for the city of Dallas, and helped to change the law for trailer park eateries in Dallas, along with the West Dallas Chamber of Commerce. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I
so you're an activist.
Yeah, maybe. I think at the time, trailer park eateries were really big in Austin, and they were just illegal in Dallas. And so I started the first trailer that was licensed, and then, like I said, helped along with the West Dallas Chamber of Commerce to kind of advocate for that type of business in Dallas, which I think is doing really well now. But I had this opportunity to move back to Austin during that time. I was kind of going through some changes and thinking about, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And so I just picked up and left. It was a little bit of a low point for me. Actually, the music venue just wasn't making any money. So I was just draining my bank accounts, like all of that money that I had made from my sale of my business, like it was just going down the toilet. And so
Oh no.
opportunity to kind of just like step back, move to Austin and regroup. And I think that's I took some time off for a minute. Like honestly, like I was probably at a really at a mental low, super depressed, just like, oh God, so much regret, just all these things like mistakes that you're making and all of this nonsense. But I was able to sort of find my way back to one of my colleagues that I knew from Deep Ellum. So even though that project in Deep Ellum was a success in a lot of ways, but it just didn't make any money. And so then you're kind of like, well, what does success really mean? Well, it would be nice to be in the black. That would be great.
Right. Not losing money.
Not losing
But
money.
if it was part of a movement, then you have to be really proud of that. I mean, I know that the area's had its highs and lows, but it's been up going really strong now for a while.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of great foundations down there. There's so many great entrepreneurs there that have really just kept at it and started amazing new projects, and they're just killing it down there. And I love it because again, those are some of the people that I started with back in the 2009 2010. Some of them are still there, and I love to see their successes and just all of the amazing things that they've brought to the area, art galleries and other music venues and restaurants, and just this great heritage. Just kind of living that Deep Ellum legacy of it being this amazing entertainment district in Dallas. I think is it's really something to applaud. Um,
Yes, for sure.
yeah, and so when I came to Austin, like I mentioned, it was a low point for me. I think as an entrepreneur, it's something that we don't talk about enough. Is like you can have successes and you can have failures, and that's kind of part of the journey, right? That's part of a journey of life. It's not even related to being an entrepreneur, but nobody talks about the failures.
I'll have you tell my wife that.
And yeah, nobody talks about the failures and like how low you can get. And then I think like when you do have a home run like I had with my staffing company, sort of the next thing is like, well, you can't fail again. Like why would like not only do you have this kind of in your mind, like, well, everything I do has to be successful because I am depending on myself to make my own living. But when people invest in you too, I think there's this kind of like thing like, well, you did it again. You did it before, you can do it again. So it's kind of like, okay, like now go win another Grammy, go win another Oscar. You did it once.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
there's a pressure on you that I think people don't talk about enough, right? There are low points that people don't talk about enough, where you feel like you've sold something and you lose your identity or you're losing your ass in this project. And you're like, maybe I'm not good at this. Like you have this massive imposter syndrome. And you're kind of like, what do I even do next? I don't even know how to write a freaking resume. Like what do I put on this resume? Everything. I know how to do everything in some way. What am I good at? I don't know because my current project is failing. So maybe I'm not good at anything. There's a lot of like, yeah, I'm serious.
It was. I totally get you. I've been through all those same parts, but I guess for me, I just want to say for you, like, just because that business didn't work out doesn't mean you weren't doing all the right things. It just wasn't the right. It maybe was just a little early, or it just wasn't the right time. If
Well,
I don't.
so
But I completely understand the imposter syndrome and like all those questions you have about yourself. And it's like, when I left corporate world, I had to take 3 months just to kind of get my shit together again. It's like, oh my God, there's a world out here. I had no idea I was in this whole wheel of this is what you do. This is what you do. And it was, it's been enlightening and a lot of fun.
yeah,
So I totally get, that time where you need to self-reflect and go, what do I really want to do?
yeah.
How do I get it?
I mean, honestly, and I think personally, like I just had to pull myself out of like a really deep hole. Like I said, even just mentally, I was really not sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. Like I was having a hard time going back to work for somebody. There's something to be said. The hours that you work, as an entrepreneur, like sometimes it's just nonstop. It can be 24/7. And so when you go someplace and this is going to sound weird, but you work 9 to 5, you're like, there's a relief here, but then I need to ask for extra time off for lunch because I have an appointment I've got to get to or need to mail a letter. And then you start feeling like kind of confined by that. So it's a weird dynamic to know that you can prefer the 24/7 and have the flexibility of your day to kind of do your personal things as needed versus going to work for, a guaranteed paycheck where you have to ask for extra time or you need to ask for days off. It's weird. It's a weird balance. And I think, for me, I dabbled in consulting and trying to do things for work for other people. And ultimately I was led back to entrepreneurship through just a couple of different things. And I think it's just what aligns most with me as a person and what I, strive to do. So, I'll be honest, like one day, I had tried working for a couple places and just, I just couldn't get it together. I was day drinking at a grocery store. Like seriously, I'm telling you, this was a low period of my life. But I was flipping through this magazine and I had, my lunch and a glass of wine. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like I'm running out of cash. I've got to figure something out. And I saw a friend of mine that I knew from Deep Ellum was moving his winery to the hill country in High. And so I reached out to him and he mentioned he needed some help with a project. It was just, I just needed a volunteer. And so I went out there and I had just been to the hill country for the first time a couple months earlier and was thinking like, man, this would be really cool. Like, I didn't even know this was here. I was spending all this money going to California and we have all these amazing wineries here in Texas. Like how did I live here my whole life and never know this was a thing? So I go out there, we talk about it, and one of the first things he mentions to me is this rum project. And so for me, like rum has always been my favorite spirit. It just reminds me of taking time off or going, that getaway that you go to, when you're like,
yep.
I'm away, my rum is off, I don't have any responsibilities for a minute. So many things, right? And so when he mentioned the rum project, I was like, you know what? I think that's it. I think this is one of those moments where like the hair raises on your arm and you're just like, this is it. So I told him, I was like, if you guys are looking for an investor or maybe for like a partner or whatever, I'm not doing anything right this minute. I'm trying to figure it out. I have time to dedicate to this. I have a little bit of cash left. And I would love to be a part of this. And so he was like, no, I've got this figured out. I've got a partner. I don't need to do this. And so I was like, cool. And a couple of months later, he called me and, when I answered the phone, I was like, hey, is it rum time? And he goes, no, I was just wanting to see if you could watch my dog. I was like, sure. And then a couple of weeks goes by and he calls me again and I'm like, is it rum time? And he's like, no, I just wanted to see, if you can help watch the winery this weekend. Like, sure. And then a couple months after that, he called and I didn't ask. And he said, it's rum time. Do you want the third spot? And so I think like the timing of it was good for me. Again, it's something that I feel very passionate about. And then, we started this distillery in 2016 as High Rum. However, Island Getaway was with us the entire time. It was the very first cocktail on our menu. It was called the Island Getaway. So when we, a few years later, like again, flash forward when we launched our flavored rums, we called them Island Getaway Rum. So it's been with us the entire time. And I think like what we did was we accidentally made something really good that is really unique. Which helps, there's a lot.
I love those accidents. They're the best accidents.
We spent a lot of time out in High, kind of like really understanding what people wanted to buy. The Wine Road, which is from Johnson City all the way to Fredericksburg, is this glorious, 25-mile stretch of road that has a lot of wineries and breweries and all kinds of things. And so it has a lot of visitors, right? And so the visitors kind of tell you, like, these are consumers out in the world, and they tell you what they're interested in and what they want to see and what they want you to do. And so, my partner, which is kind of funny, the partner that introduced us to my third partner, James, who's actually also the distiller. Without him, we would have never even met, right? We would have never met. But James and I ended up buying him out, the original guy, the winemaker, in like 2 years into the project, because he was starting another winery, and that's like his pocket.
Oh wow,
his fabulous
yeah,
winemaker. Like, he's probably one of my favorite winemakers in Texas, and he just didn't really have time for the project. And we had a little bit of a different vision on like how we were going to actually try to expand. And our goal, what we realized being in it every day, was we're never going to sell enough bottles because of Texas law and just because of the way tourism works, right? Tourism is based on a lot of things. It's based on weather, it's based on the economy, it's based on holidays. And if you don't have enough tourism coming to your shop to buy bottles, you're not going to sell enough bottles. It's just very simple math. So, in order for us to make a living, we're like, well, we have to get this out in the marketplace, because we need more than one spot for people to be able to buy this. It seems to be going over well. People seem to really enjoy it. How do we get it to more people? And the way to do that is through distribution. And so we recognized pretty early on that we had to distribute in order to be successful. And I'll tell you, as a craft distillery, distribution is the toughest part, because you want to make sure that you are aligning yourself with a distributor that has similar values and similar goals, that pays you on time, that orders properly, and that kind of like is a little bit of a partner for your brand. And it took us several years to do that. And then in the midst of this, we had a freaking pandemic. Like, when does that even happen? I just like the
right.
So we had this like crazy 5 years where we kind of just did a lot of nothing. You know what I mean? Like, we were seeing tourists when we could. Pandemic stopped a lot of that. And we were really struggling out there. And so I think we've learned a lot. But like I said, when we decided to merge the labels into one name that people had to remember, which was Island Getaway Rum, I think it was the name that resonated the most with people. It was also the one we could trademark. We can trademark high rum. People misspell it. They misspell high every single possible way you can possibly. You wouldn't think, but nobody has heard.
No.
So it was just kind of one of those natural things. And I think, like, in my rambling about how we got to this, the main thing is what I've learned in the last 8 years of owning and operating a distillery in the state of Texas is that it takes a lot of money to do it. And if you're not making money, you better get a lot of investment capital and try to make a lot of money, because otherwise it's just a really hard business. You know, understanding like what you're making, why you're making it, why it's different and why it's special, and then getting it to the right price point, and then getting it to the right distributor, and then getting it into the right stores, and then hiring the right people to sell it. There's a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult industry to break into. And if you're outside of the industry, it's even harder. You know, like you said, all the things that you have to learn along the way.
Right.
I had Brian Rosen on, who's done very well in, you know, lots of different aspects of our industry, and he helps small brands grow. And he said that they've done the math and they figure they can help small brands save $100,000 in mistakes just by getting people in front of the right lawyers, the right, you know, distributors, the right people that you can trust, because it's, you know, there's always bad apples out there no matter what. But, you know, if you can, like you say, learn from mistakes you've made quicker, faster, with less money, it pays in the long run, right? It gets you there a little bit quicker.
And that's the thing, is we started our distillery with $61,000. And I can tell you,
wow,
that is unheard of. A lot of
that's nothing.
Jeez. With $5 million, $20 million, and so they're starting that much further ahead. And so all of our all of our growth and all of our development, like our product development, literally has come from us just freaking doing it ourselves, being in the trenches, making the rum and distilling and trying over and over again, and just doing all the things, like learning every single step of the way. And we've leaned a lot on some of my contacts that I have, from the business before, but also in like the Texas Distilled Spirits Association. There are a lot of other distilleries that were bigger than us that started with way more than we did, that just have that kind of know-how and that knowledge. And so it's been a wealth of information for me to use, like Cameron, the president of Devil's River, as a mentor, to talk with Brent Luby from Desert Door, again, as a mentor, or Atlas Cheek, who is at Treaty Oak and is now at Ladybird Mixers, to ask them when I need help, or like for that advice or feedback. Give us feedback. Like, who do I need to get in the room with? That's the thing, is like,
Right.
what we're making is really unique. We have, number one, we're one of a handful of, well, let me start at the beginning. Number one, to our knowledge, we are the first Latina owned distillery in Texas.
That's awesome. Yay.
That
That is very cool.
Of our states into the South. Okay. And if we're not the first, we're one of very few. BIPOC distilleries in the United States take up less than 1% of the entire industry. So it's, and this is a statistic that we learned from Uncle Nearest and Jack Daniels, who are advocates for BIPOC advancement in this industry. So I trust what they say. I think that they probably know best.
Right.
And so when you take that and you go like, oh, wow, there's just not very many of us doing this. Then you say like, okay, and then we're also women owned. Okay, that's great. We're women owned. Again, a lot of really amazing, successful women pioneers in the industry, but we're just dominated. We're still a minority in this business, regardless of the great things that are happening, right? And then we are one of a handful of American dark rum producers. Okay, there's something unique about the actual product. And then, we also have this line of flavored rums at 40% ABV. They're rum strength, that have no sugar added to them. Again, we're the only ones in the marketplace. There might be some.
That's crazy. That's a great differentiator, especially now with people wanting to, decrease obviously their sugar intake for various reasons. But that's a really great point.
Yeah. And, I have my friend, Paul, he's at the Key West distillery. He actually has also a 40% ABV, no sugar added coconut rum.
Oh, we have some right here.
Yeah.
we went
the best.
We went to Cuba over Thanksgiving a few years ago and stopped in Key West and got some of their rum.
Yeah. I'm serious. Like he has also been a great mentor. So again, like I think, there's just not a lot of this out globally in the marketplace. And so it's been my goal to really try to work those different angles. His coconut rum is a little different. They're using a green coconut. We're using, coconut distilled extract. So just our technique is different. But I think still, in the rum category, there's a lot of people who expect certain things. And, again, like I can trace my heritage all the way back to the Canary Islands, where they were trading sugarcane back in the 1400s. So I feel like there's a uniqueness to what we're doing and this kind of legacy and heritage behind it that we're still uncovering. And the other part is like, we had to do it and we had to figure out how to do all of those things and have all of those unique qualities and then still come in at a price that people wanted to pay.
Right.
We couldn't come out of this. We tried coming out at a $41 bottle of rum, and let me tell you, nobody wants to buy that. Not for a local made product. So we had to figure out how to get below the 20 mark, because we want people to use this in volume, right? We want them to buy bottles and we want bars and restaurants and hotels to put this in their frozen machines, and they're just not going to do that with an ultra premium, price point. So we had to kind of like find this pocket, and it took us 6.5 years to do that, right? It getting our cost of goods down and getting our production down and understanding compliance, and then reworking our label and reworking the brand and all the things that we've done to try to like keep shifting and keep navigating these waters. There's a lot of people I think that think like, oh, you just launch something and you sell it and it's great and that's amazing. There's so many dynamics to the spirits industry that are so important to what you're doing, even just down to the label. Like when I went to the Nearest Jack Advancement Summit this year, with Fawn Weaver, that was one of the feedback. They were like, you guys need to work on this label. I'm like, Jesus, we just got now we got to redo the label. But, you have to be willing to hear it and say, if you're telling me, if somebody from Brown-Forman, Jack Daniels is telling me that I need a new label, I probably need a new label, and I need to swallow it today, swallow that pill, and I need to say, tomorrow we find somebody to make that label for us. What does it need to look like? What does it need to say? What are the points that we're missing out on that this label could be working harder for us on the shelf, whether it's in the back bar or whether it's on a retail shelf? How can the label work harder for you when you're not in the store pushing it?
That's right. What were you missing? What did you change?
We changed the whole thing. Like it looks completely different now. They are going to start hitting the shelves hopefully in our next shipment through RNDC, but it took us a while to develop it, but it's now this brilliant, vibrant color. Like I was using all like kind of dark Art Deco, designs and colors because I'm a Deco lady. But I had a design company come out, and I was like, if you were designing this for a new rum company, what would this look like? And they gave us this fabulous design. Our no sugar added is on the front of the label, Island inspired, Texas made. It tells you exactly what is in the bottle in 4 words just by looking at it before you even have to turn the bottle over. So really understanding like what goes on the front of the label that makes a difference versus having someone look at it and go, now I got to pick it up and see, okay, now I don't get it. Like that was too much work. We needed to be at the right.
Yeah. You got to stop people from keeping going, right? On the aisle.
Yes. And we knew that our label was dark and it was disappearing in the retail shelf. So the shelves are black. The lighting is from above. There's a big shadow and our label would disappear. It would just look like a big black space. And you can't have that.
Interesting.
Same thing.
Yeah.
When you're in a club or a hotel and the lights are dim, that label would disappear. And it still does, but luckily people like the liquid enough, so we're depleting through those old labels, and the new labels come out. Hopefully in December they'll start hitting, in different locations. But those learning curves, like we didn't have $30,000 to pay a design company. We didn't when we first started.
Nope.
$30,000 to stay open. You know what I mean? So like all of this stuff, again, like I think kind of one of my strengths, I don't think it's an advantage, but one of my strengths as an entrepreneur is being able to say, you know what, I can swallow that pill and I can make the change today. What do we have to do to change that today? I don't have time to wait. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like
that's right. It's now time.
It is now time all the time. All the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
for sure.
It's like, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And so for me this year, it's been all about raising capital so that we can expand. We've always been a distillery where people come to visit. We stopped that earlier this year. I also realized that we could not make enough money at the distillery to warrant having visitors. It works better for us to go where people are. And it's less expensive, and we need them to buy it from the stores. We couldn't sell you enough at our distillery to stay open. There's laws and just the general law of how the weekend works, right? We can't sell bottles on Sunday. That's perfectly fine. But if it's raining and nobody's coming out, guess where they're going? People go to their liquor store to buy bottles of liquor. That's how they shop for that. Tourists aren't going to pack cases and cases of bottles from their trip and get it on Southwest. That's just not going to happen, So
Yeah.
So we learned that, and so we made a really bold, gutsy move to close the tasting room earlier this year. And we had so many people say like, "Oh, I miss the pina coladas." Well, that just tells me right there that we made the right decision, because we're not in the pina colada business. We're in the rum business. We're here to make bottles of rum and sell it, not here to sell pina coladas.
Here's where you can get one.
Made with our rum. Here's how you can make this pina colada at your home.
Yeah.
Let's do that, because just even the permits that we were going to have, it just didn't even warrant doing that. Having a tasting room is a completely separate business than being a manufacturer. It is completely different. They're two different animals. They have different requirements. And so I think we decided that we wanted to be a manufacturer, and we had to focus on that one thing. We make rum and we sell it. That's all. It's hard.
Yeah, and if that's something that grows later down the road, you get a kitchen, you're a destination at that point.
Nope.
But now you just need to grow, and
you want to do food. I'm never going back into
I get it. It's a monster in
the
itself. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with that too. Like, you'd have to have obviously someone else run and manage all that.
It's just not even worth your time. Not if you were trying to be a manufacturer, and that's what we are.
You're a supplier. Mm-hmm.
Scale as a supplier, and get it into 170 countries in all 50 states. I don't care about cheese. I just don't want to know about cheese. I will come to your wedding at someone else's distillery. You cannot have it at mine. And it's not because I don't want that. It's just, that's just not our business. And we can be great at that, but then we're spinning our wheels doing that, and we're not focusing on what our purpose is. To do something unusual in the rum space, in the United States, in Texas. So again, like lessons that we learned the hard way. I love every single guest that we ever served over, the 6 years that we had a tasting room. They're fabulous. Like, some of them work for us. Some of them are investors in the distillery. They would have maybe even never tried it. We might have never run into them. So to all the people that came and supported us, like, I can't express my gratitude, because I do feel like it helped us get to this point. And, again, just that recognition. But what we're finding, like, we went to the State Fair of Texas, we gave out 41,000 samples. We met 41,000 people, maybe more.
Wow.
In 24 days.
Are you talking about the State Fair this year?
Yes. We did.
I was there. I didn't see you guys.
Yeah, we did an activation there in the Go Texan Pavilion for all 24 days. We gave out over 41,000 samples. I think it was like 41,500, somewhere in there. And we would have never seen that many people at our distillery ever, like, not in that period of time. It's just, the numbers just don't even match. So again, it helps us, I think, to go to where people are, and that could be in Houston or Dallas or San Antonio or Louisiana. Yep. We had our first activation in Louisiana. Meet hundreds of people there, in a 2-hour space. It just has more impact for what we personally are trying to do.
You're building from the ground up. You got to get the bang for your buck and the most people in the shortest amount of time. That makes sense. You're a small team. You can't be everywhere all the time.
You can't be everywhere. You can't be running out of cheese. That's what I'm telling you. It's like, when you start thinking about the cheese, like, how many times do we have to go to replenish cheese this week? Why are we selling cheese? We're here to sell dark rum, coconut rum. What does this have to do with the cheese? And I just really, like I said, it's a little bit of a bold move, but I felt like it was necessary for our model and what we're trying to do. And so it's funny because like after 7 years, we're like a brand new startup again in a lot of ways. But what we're seeing is that, I've been now to Japan, to Vietnam. I didn't personally go, but the product went to Spain. We have shipments potentially going to Africa, and what we're making as a U.S. producer, and as a U.S. manufacturer is viable globally. And I have to just hang on to that and remember it. I know that it's doing well in New York and New Jersey. It's We hope that it
That's
takes off.
great. Those are good states to be doing well in.
Yeah, well, it's because of the price point, right? So and again, they're American made products. So I really feel like when we see people like it, and it's when we see it being well received, no matter where we go, I have to just hang on to that because we're always going to be burning capital. It's just a very capital intense type business. And I know that what we're doing is a little bit unique and special. Of course, I'm going to have that opinion, because it's me, this is mine, and
It
I'm
is though.
James.
It's very
Um,
unique and special.
but it's you know, like we just gotta try, and we gotta be really bold at it. We have to ask for what we need, and kind of be like a little bit audacious, in some ways, because if we don't, like, it comes back to what are we waiting for? Like, why are we holding ourselves back? If a couple years ago, at the end of the pandemic, we had spent our whole time, that whole year, being four different businesses. We were a distillery at the beginning of the year, a tasting room, and then we had to shift to hand sanitizer to stay afloat. And then suddenly we had to be an outdoor movie theater to even try to operate. And then because of the tasting room, and we didn't have distribution at the time. And then we had to like be a restaurant. Again, this is where the cheese started. And then it's like, how do we do all of those things in one solid year? And we came out of it, and I was so freaking exhausted. I was watching this show on HBO about this cult, and the thing I got out of it was like, hey, wait a minute, the two biggest contributors to this cult were the daughters from the Seagram's fortune, and it just made me think like, wow, they started somewhere too, and why can't we try to be the next big liquor brand coming out of Texas, and why can't we try to be bigger than Bacardi? There are some accounts where we are bigger than Bacardi. That's amazing to me. Like, even on the micro level, we have to try for that audacious goal, because one step at a time, maybe we can get there. And, again, I think we have to have kind of our head in the game all the time. And there's days when I don't have my head in the game, where I am just tired and exhausted, and I'm traveling and I'm sick and all the things that happen. But I have to come back and shake it off and get up and do it the next day. And then shake that day off and get up and do it again the next day, and just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. Because like Fawn Weaver told me, she said, listen, if you don't do that, then maybe you didn't deserve to succeed in that space in the first place. And again, it's a hard pill to swallow,
Tough
but
love.
tough love from Fawn. But she's right. She's like, you just got to have faith
She's
that
right.
what you're doing makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I got up with the time change this morning. I thought it was at 5 or 5:30, which ended up being 4:30. I didn't care. I was just like, okay, let's get going. I get look, and my
It's
wife
true.
woke up around 6:30 or something like that, and she has to have 2 cups of coffee to get going. But we pass in the kitchen. She's like, "What are you so bubbly for?" I go, "I get to go to work today. I'm happy. I'm excited." You know. And that's you don't have days like that every day. Some days
Yeah,
it's just
not every
tough.
day is like that.
Not every
And
day's like that.
yeah, and there's days where I want to just hide under my bed and go like, dear God, we didn't make our fundraising goal this year. Our goal was to raise $3 million, because we needed a 3-year runway to really push in every single way we can. We raised 1.1 million. Well, we raised a third of the money. We're at a third of the goal. We need the whole thing. And so just thinking about that on a day-to-day basis, like knowing that it's going to take time for the sales to catch up. It's going to take time. Like our RNDC just picked up their first order from us in August, or like, I think it was July 30th
Oh,
or
no
31st.
kidding.
And hit the warehouse until August. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. And we need that time and that capital to be able to advertise, to put up, you know, whatever it is to make those pay to plays. Every now and then you got to pay to play. And that's important for people to know, because again, what you're doing is advertising and getting the name in front of people and getting liquid to lips, right? It's like, how many people can I get to try this as quickly as possible? And it takes capital to do it. And
it really does. It takes
yeah,
time and capital.
One of my favorite mentors told me, he was like, Stephanie, in order to really do this business, you need to really start with $5 million. He's like, because that's what it's going to take to just get going. And
the fact that you started with 61,000 blows my mind.
Years.
Talk about putting it out there in the universe and having the universe carry you along like that is like unbelievable. You know, you put it out there.
Because, you know, we've still never raised $5 million total. But I do think that, like, the money comes when we need it. But again, like, we have to all be in the right headspace, even just to be able to receive it, or to be, you know, and it takes guts to go and ask people for money.
That's the hardest thing to do.
And that's times like they want to see, like, what are your results? Well, our results are we're selling 50% more every single week than we were the week prior. Okay, but what are the sales? Okay, well, that's not how this works, right? They buy a truckload, you have to deplete it, and then they'll buy another truckload. Like, we had a lot of bottles to sell. We had a lot of people to hire and train and do all this stuff. So it doesn't always work out in a traditional sense, because again, as a manufacturer, we're always going to be behind the red line. We, you know, again, we're talking about, yes, we're 7 years old as a tasting room distillery. We're 3 months old as a distributed product. Very different timelines. But I do feel like.
Are you?
Go ahead.
Where else do you have a distributor, like a big distributor like that behind you? You mentioned New York, New Jersey, because, you know, if they're just getting product in now, you're barely getting started, and you're getting started at the right time, because by spring you'll be fully loaded and ready to kind of, you know, turn.
So we're with RNDC in Texas and also in Louisiana, and Louisiana is going really, really great for us. Right now, like, again, it's our sister state. We have a rep on the ground there. New York, we had a little bit of difficulty with the sales team that we hired to do that. And so we're back a little bit at ground zero there, where the product was moving and it was doing okay, but something happened in that flow where suddenly the sales team that we hired wasn't doing anything. And they were like our third party. And they were reorganizing, but didn't really tell us. And so stuff just stopped. So we are back in the process of having to hire our own rep. And again, like, remember, I was in the recruiting business before. So recruiting for me is like second nature. I was in the staffing world, right? Doing jobs and hiring and all that, and training people is second nature to me. So everyone that works for us right now does actually work for the distillery. You know,
nice.
But again, you know, it adds to our overhead. So there's always kind of like that little, you know, those nuances. But again, we have ambassadors that care about what they're doing and care about seeing the success of the product. And then they see it out and they see how people receive it, and they go like, oh, this is actually something. And we actually make it. Like, we're not just buying it from someplace and putting a label on it. No, like, we actually make it. We actually make it. There's nothing wrong with white labeling at all. It's just, you know, again, something where I think we're doing something a little bit unique, and in several ways that I think, you know, I just really hope that it does as well as I think it can do. Because James and I have both, like, dedicated our life to this, and we're passionate about what we do, passion can only take you so far, right? You know, you still got to have capital, and you've got to have people who like it, and it's got to have a space. It's got to have a place on the shelf where it
Yep.
matters
Yeah.
to really go.
Well, I think, Brian Rosen again, he sees all kinds of brands, through his company. And I asked him what he thought, what was the trend. And he's like sipping rums. He's like, this is the thing. So I think your timing is right within the marketplace right now. We'll see how that kind of plays out next year. But I would think that you guys are, now that you're in distribution with RNDC, you're set. Like now you're going to start seeing the cases, hopefully, right? And seeing the distribution and, get.
I
Yeah,
certainly hope
I
so.
think
And our
so.
goal is right now there are some opportunities for us as a BIPOC supplier for some national accounts. And so I think if we can get that national distribution kind of channel working, or at least available to us, we can land some of those national accounts that also matter because of the volume. And then those things supplement. So again, like if I had my wish list today, I would want to be able to have that national distributor so that we could turn around and trigger those national accounts that are kind of just waiting on us to find that first piece. Because I think we can make a difference. And I think, like, again, coming at it like from an American made product, a lot of the rums that are our competitors, they're not made in the United States. And so if we could just carry that here in our own country, I think that could be it could be really good for us, but also just for American spirits just in general. So again, my wish list would be, number one, we get national distribution someplace, and then number two, we can land some of those national accounts because that would make such a huge difference for us. And then in the meantime, we're still like working Texas, and we're still working Louisiana, and we're still on the ground in those places, and we're exporting to these other countries who have found viability in our product. And then, we can start making those leaps and bounds. Before we do that too, it's almost like I would love for the right investment group to come to us that says, we understand the beverage business. We understand how this works. We see the viability of this product, and we see the uniqueness and the opportunities, and we want to be able to provide the capital for you to go hit those opportunities as hard as you can. Because it's hard, when you're struggling on the case count, it takes time. It takes time to sell those cases through. But when you can have the capital to be able to have the resources and the people and the right accounts that move that product, it makes a difference. And so even just having like the right investors come to us, or somehow, can I get me in the room with somebody? Just get me in the room with them. So we can talk to them, about what we're doing. I think it would make a huge difference for us, just as a company. Like, I would love for me to be able to take the freaking gloves off. And in order to do that, we can do it some, but it would be nice to be able to have the rest of those investment dollars in to really be able to take the gloves off.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's kind of distribution, but also sales oriented at the same time. Is there any way you could partner with, say, in this? I think Dripping Springs Vodka is only in Texas, or a Garrison Brothers, who I think is distributed probably in fairly quite a few states, and share within that distribution model and share some of those relationships to try to help get you, additional distribution in other states. And the second part of that is, could you do that also with the sales team? So I'll give you an example. Comisario Tequila, they're looking to hire someone in the state of Texas, maybe Dallas area or something. Since you're not a competing product, but you represent a high-end portfolio, could that be something you could work together to save costs, but you both win because that person's going to be selling, in the same accounts, really.
Yeah.
Or similar accounts.
Yeah, I think that the possibilities are really endless. I'm friends with the guys over at Dripping Springs, and they're just phenomenal. Again, they're part of the Texas Distilled Spirits Association, along with Garrison. And so they've been very helpful in introducing me to people and to accounts and great things like that. What I love about what we're doing, because we did try the split model, and that unfortunately is a model that failed for us in New York, is I feel like when we put in our own reps, and again, this could just be my naivete from coming from a sales background in a previous life, is we have a full portfolio in our bag. And the feedback that we get is, you know what, I love that you guys, like, I was just tasting your rum, and it was just rum, and it was literally somebody from the company that was here telling me about your story and why I should even order this. So it's interesting because we're carrying our own portfolio. And so I think if we added something into there, it just causes a little bit of confusion. Again, not to say that a distributor does that, right? They have a portfolio of 300 brands or whatever.
Yeah, 100%.
It's always something that has some priority over a craft brand, always, until those case counts start to really, really pull. So I feel like we have to be open to everything. And what might work in Dallas might not work in Austin, might not work in Houston, might work in McAllen. I don't know. Everything, like, we can never say, oh, that doesn't work for us, or oh, we're not going to do that because this and that. We have to just be like, cool, can this work for us here? Look at all the options, weigh it out, try it out. For, you know, we have, I do try stuff out at test periods. I'm like, cool, we got 60 days. What can y'all move in 60 days? If you can't do it, I will hire somebody that can. Again, we just have to be able to have,
like, you have to
have an open mind at all times, be able to pivot at all times, and be able to step and walk into every single opportunity that presents itself to us with zero fear. We have to.
Yeah, no fear. So you've mentioned a few mentors and people that have helped, like in partnership, or mentorship as far as Garrison Brothers and Dripping Springs. But is there anybody else personally that you want to mention that has kind of helped you through a hump, or you mentioned earlier, people just tell you the truth and.
Yeah, totally. And I love that because I've sort of turned around and given that same advice to people. Like I said, Mike over at Devil's River, he has been extremely helpful to me. Daniel over at Crowded Barrel, different model. But again, like, I feel like I can ask these people like blunt questions. And they will give me a straight answer. Atlas over at Ladybird Mixers, he was previously at Treaty Oak. So just within Texas. And then of course, like, we can lean hard into our contacts at Uncle Nearest and Jack Daniels. Jamie over at Jack Daniels has been extremely helpful to us this year, as well as Kate and Fawn over at Uncle Nearest. And I'll tell you, like, whenever I need a pep talk, like, I'll email Fawn and she'll respond and say, like, you trust me. She's like, you can do this. You can do this. So I feel like the more that we get, I'm ready and open for any and all mentors. And sometimes it comes in like the most unexpected way. And sometimes it's just little small nuggets, like I had an opportunity to talk with Tito, and he said, whatever you make, just make sure you really like it, because you're going to be drinking a lot of it. Thought, like,
that's some good advice.
Really great advice, because again, like, even the alcohol business is a slippery slope. I think that there's an opportunity to misuse alcohol or overuse, and then try to run a business, and I think that's impossible for me personally. So I'll be honest, like, I don't drink a ton because I cannot also operate, and I definitely can't operate.
You can't.
And I definitely can't drive my car impaired because, my liquor license, my federal license is at stake. So I think, we try to use responsibly. We try to really hit that home. And I've, offered my services, like, to schools and people like that. Like, where can I go and talk to minors about the responsible use of alcohol as an alcohol supplier? How can we talk about this early? It's not a cool fad to go out and be an alcoholic. Like, how do we talk about, the use of alcohol for what it was intended, right? And not in an abuse style way. So again, like I try to be an advocate for the opposite of that too, right? How do we bring awareness to minors, to female Hispanic? This is going to be the biggest growing demographic in the United States. What can I say to them as a liquor supplier that might make a difference for them later, regarding alcohol use?
Yeah. Are there, yeah, that's certainly a good initiative. And a lot of the major suppliers, definitely are promoting drink responsibly and whatnot, which is really important. Agreed. And as we get older, we can't handle it anymore.
That's for
And
sure.
so, yeah, it's like,
There's that. But it hits different. And I think, again, I think you just become mindful. So again, it's like those, what are those better for you options? What doesn't have sugar? Where was this made? Does it have additives in it? Do I know about what they are? And again, just trying to make like the best decisions possible, understanding, that alcohol is going to be really diverse, right? There's all kinds of different things that you can have. There's all
yep.
kinds of different models of alcohol, proofs and everything, sugar levels, whatever it is. And just, knowing where you're buying from, I think makes a big difference. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a place and I was like, tell me how many, this is totally a trick I learned from Fawn. I was like, tell me how many of those brands that you have back there are owned by females. I'll wait. Okay. Like, how many of those are not owned by one major company? I'll wait. Like, how many of those are craft local Texas brands in your local Texas restaurant? And again, it's not about shaming anybody by any means. It's literally just about awareness. Like, oh, cool. I hadn't really thought about that. I would love to support Texas,
Yep.
a craft, rum maker. We have a billion celebrities coming out with their new whatever it is. I won't talk about the latest
Every day.
every day. And I'm like, I really feel like it does a disservice, and I'm just going to say it out loud. I feel like it does a disservice to the craft makers out there that are actually making a product, that put their blood, sweat, and tears and all of their money into it, to have a celebrity put their name on something that they've probably never even been to the distillery or have no idea how distillation is even done. And then that guy outsells every craft maker 100 times over. I think it's a disservice, to American distillers, to the American manufacturing process. But it's something that we deal with. But it just gets on my damn nerves. And I'm just going to say
yeah,
it.
no,
Now that I turned 50,
I get it. Yeah, you just gotta say it. You just gotta put it out there, because people in the industry get it. Some of them fail, some of them don't. Some of them that partner with the right people, are doing a good thing for the industry. But at the same time, it's their fame, and then the product behind that, which to your point is kind of
go into the acting business and take your job. Why are you trying to come
exactly.
in and take mine? It's like it's one of those things where I have my feelings about celebrity brands, because, like I mentioned, like a lot of them are tequilas, and I've been to Jalisco to see these family estates and how hard they work and just all the sweat that goes into this.
Yeah.
And then, again, I feel like it's just a disservice to craft distilleries that are made here, that we just work our fingers, and our heads to the bone, just to be undercut, by a celebrity name on a bottle. It just
I know.
me.
Well, there's not too many rum owners yet, is there?
Oh, just wait. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. Again, like, I don't want to call anybody out because, number one, I think it's just not my place, but I definitely feel like I love I love the makers here. Ren over at Montana in Colorado, one of the first female rum makers in the United States. Like what they're doing is so spectacular. And their product is so good. And she's just such an amazing role model, I think, and somebody that I aspire to do, to be like and to make, and that product is just glorious. And so I love the advocacy behind that, behind, makers that are actually making their products here in the US. I think is really special.
I guess we need to have like promote some kind of website that promotes all of the makers like in that way, like the smaller ones per state or something. That'd be kind of cool. Then have female owned and BIPOC, and that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that'd be so
Maybe
cool.
maybe something like that already exists. I don't know.
Yeah, if anything, like even just for the awareness of it, like I
Yeah.
said, we've gotten a lot of press in the last few months about being the first Latina-owned distillery, and to be honest, like we don't know what anyone's corporate agreements look like. I have no idea what somebody's paperwork with the Secretary of State, and if nobody claimed it before, and it is their title. I want them to have that because why didn't we know about that before? Like, how can we know more about that? How can we talk more about it? How can we bring more awareness to them so that they get their due credit? I think that's the most important thing of all of it. It doesn't matter to me if I'm first or last. It's the thing of how do we bring more awareness to it? So again, just people just know where they're buying from. I think
Yep.
increasingly consumers want to know who, why, what, where, when, period. And, shining a light on the people that are working so hard to make a living, I think is a good way to just be.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it was brought up earlier on another podcast about how people care about where their food comes from. Why do you not care about where your beverages come from?
Oh, yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
it's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
this this guy, he was asking me something, and every now and then, I get a little salty. I am a woman of high spirited nature. Sometimes, they were like, "Why should I promote your rum over this other rum?" And it was a coconut rum, so it was owned by a very large company and me. And I pulled up the owner of this company. And I was like, "Do you think this guy needs any more money? He does not. I need to pay my rent next month. Should you buy mine over that one?" It's just kind
It's
of
a
hilarious.
no-brainer. I mean, come on.
Let me show you. Do you think this guy needs another yacht? I don't think so. Why are we doing that? We're $1 more. Why should you pay an extra dollar? Come on. Like,
Wow, that's impressive. You can get that low. Really, honestly, nice work.
yeah.
That must have been really hard to get to.
Well, it's hilarious because, again, I think maybe in some ways that's done us a disservice, but I have to think about it in like what are our personal goals, and our personal goals are to scale it and do it in volume.
Yeah,
Volumes.
you can always raise prices. You can't really come back down.
Yeah. So it's like I feel like, we have to be competitive. We have to still land in a spot where people want to pay. To compete with those volume movers, we have to be in the right price point. There's just no getting around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any, you mentioned mentors. Do you have any resources or any books or podcasts or anything that you listen to kind of help you through, whether it's personal growth or, it doesn't have to be just, an entrepreneur. It can be just, things that help you on the days to get out of bed that you don't want to get out of bed.
My biggest resource that I use on the daily is called Mind Valley. And
Oh, me too. I love Vision.
I saw a vision on like some YouTube thing, and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna get this because I think I just need to meditate more." And while I had my staffing company, I also had a yoga studio for a little while. So like, it's kind of like I love the mindful practice, and I paid for this course, and I thought it was literally just a course. And then I opened up the app and it's got like 65 courses and stuff. So I've even like shown some of them to my staff. Like there are some great resources about money management and about relationships and even about like building an unstoppable brand. That's one of the courses in there by the guy from who invented Zumba. And those things I think keep me aligned as an entrepreneur on, you know, thinking outside the box on certain things, but also hearing from people who have been successful in other industries. But then I also love like the meditation aspect of it. I love Michael Bernard Beckwith, who's in Mind Valley, or oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. But anyways, he teaches this course called Duality in there, and I love the mindfulness, the grounding, the meditation, because there are times when it gets hard and chaotic and you can feel like really just outside of your body, just swirling out of control. And so sometimes using those techniques, I think, to even just kind of come back and get centered and go like, wait a minute, okay,
Get
let me
centered, yeah.
execute. Those things are just as important as, you know, understanding the mechanics behind marketing, or the, you know, something behind, you know, how a company scales. There's so much beyond that I think is all part of a mindset driven world that we live in. And so I love that app. Like I said, I use it daily. I love Bert Goldman's, you know, quantum jumps and all the things. I listen to it every day.
They have, I listen to his podcast and he has the most amazing guests on there. I've learned so much about being a rounded person, learning skills I never thought about before, learning about what's going on. Like this whole thing with microdosing on mushrooms is such a big deal right now. It was in how it can help with your, you know, like creativity. And there's like this whole thing, you know, but there are people on there that just blow me away. Like he has some of the most successful people I've ever heard of. And they're not anybody that's in the media. They're not on the Times 100. These are people out there doing things and offering their keys to success, which to me is just so important. You're not going to need them all or use them all, but
Yeah.
you learn them, you
Well,
know?
and I love that they're taught in like little short micro bursts, right? So like 7 minutes, 11 minutes, 13 minutes, and then it moves on to the next thing, and then you can just keep. So it gives you a moment to like kind of contemplate and think about the lessons that are in there. One of my favorite ones is taught. It's called Happy Money. It's from Ken Honda, and it talks about like how we have been conditioned to relate to money. And it starts early on. You know, of course, they talk about like what you saw and what you learned. But I think the happy money concept is really interesting, and a lot of times, like it shakes me back into place too, where money is a tool, and it's really an energy exchange. And I think like I spent a lot of time in my childhood in survivor mode, and when you're in survivor mode a lot, you come from a place of scarcity. So you're always concerned about money running out, right? Or how are we depleting, or what is it? You know, and I listen to him because he helps me realize, and it doesn't mean that it gets cleared, but he helps me sort of put things in perspective and go like, okay, if this is why I think about that, and what if I thought about it in a different, more productive way? You know, would the money flow, would it improve, or would my just perspective of what's happening improve? You know, we brought in capital not to sit on it and hoard it. We brought in capital to spend it. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't feel so bad about spending it. We're not misspending it. We're spending it on things that we need. People, advertising, word of mouth, awareness, like contracts that we have to sign and do and execute. We need those things. We're not mindlessly spending, you know, like we need those things, and we have to have them to be a successful brand. So I think like even from the basic standpoint of that, you know, understanding that, you know, we can't do it all, I think is it's been a great tool for me. Again, and then I always lean into my distillation context too, because I think they speak to me in a way that is conducive to this industry and this business from their perspective of where they are in their timeline. And so I'm able to turn around and speak to people from where I am in my timeline and say, you know what, I heard this from somebody else and I wish I had heard it 5 years sooner. I'm going to tell that to you now.
Right.
Don't do what I did. Like, how can I save you that $100,000? As again, it's like, it's about pay it forward. Pay it forward. Like, we are in this as an industry as a whole, and every single part of it benefits somebody else. That's I was talking at St. Edward's recently, and I was talking about like what I'm doing for myself for or for this brand, sorry, not for myself, is actually, it's not necessarily for me, right? It's we're talking about female entrepreneurs. We're talking about Latina owned businesses, who are Latinas are starting businesses 6 times faster than anyone else in the United States. How do we lift everybody up as a whole? It doesn't even have to be in the beverage industry, but just as a whole, to have the awareness and success early, so whenever we succeed, somebody else hopefully succeeds too. It's not just us, it has a ripple effect in time that I think reminds me that I am lucky to be in some of the rooms that I'm in, working at the Texas legislature, where at one point probably women weren't even allowed in those chambers. And we have this legacy of doing things that matter that we may not have been able to do 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and definitely not before that, as women, as minorities, as people of color, but also just as this people of the state of Texas. Like, you couldn't even have a distillery, for a long time. So how do you be a pillar of the community or of some group of people? You just don't even know. You never know the effect that you have. And I feel like the opportunity is there to do it and to make a difference that matters, that has impact for you probably won't even know
about. I think that's the fun of it. I mean, I kind of hope that with this podcast too.
Right.
I get the privilege of being able to talk to really successful and amazing people like yourselves, and hopefully your story will inspire someone else. That's kind of like, that's the hope, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's
maybe somebody needs to hear something that was said today. That is my biggest hope, is that somebody goes, you know what, that resonates with me and I get it, and I'm going to act on this, or I'm going to make this decision, or I'm going to, take the leap, because I know now that this is just part of the process. Somebody told me recently, actually about 4 people that are all in the beverage industry, said, like, you're going to be raising capital like every single year, right? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. Okay, now that I know that, I don't feel so bad. Okay, thank you for telling me.
I can mentally prepare for this now.
Jeez. So again, it's like, sometimes you just think you're doing something wrong, and then you realize that you're not. And you can't be everywhere at once. You can't listen to every single industry podcast or read every single, industry publication, because you're in the field and you're in the trenches and you're at accounts trying to sell them, and, you're doing what you can do to build. You cannot do all the research simultaneously. I mean, if you can, like, I haven't learned how to do it. I can't.
I can't either.
So I have to just know, like, where to listen and when.
Yeah, you prioritize and you find what works for you. Like with Mind Valley, it's by far my number 1 favorite podcast that I listen to, and but there are a lot of other good podcasts that, I guess, because I'm just a podcast person, I have been more so than a reader. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's just fun for me to be in the car or want to walk or whatever, and just listen to different things. Excuse me.
Sure.
So what are I know you've kind of talked about a few pain points, but is there any main pain point that you're facing right now that is a bit of a struggle?
It's always capital. I think, again, sometimes you have a network of people. Our first investors were all friends and family, and our second investors were all friends and family, and then our third investors were some fans. And your network can never be big enough for capital.
Right.
And sometimes like really understanding like how to reach out to those expanded networks, or talk, again, the capital has to be there in order for you to make a meaningful impact. It just that's been a pain point for us. And then outside of that, I think some of the pain points has just been learning about how distribution really works, and again learning that the distributors just don't really sell for you anymore. And maybe that was the way that things used to work, but if you think that that's the way it's going to work, you're wrong. You are going to have to be out in the field selling. And
You
I don't,
do.
because the distributors don't care. I just think that they have their limits as well. And in order for you
Yeah,
to,
they're one person with this big
yes,
book of business, and
it's
it's the consolidation is hurt that. But there's more and more smaller distributors popping up too that focus on brands like yours. So I mean, I think that's a good trend to look out for as well.
I would love that. I still think that the sales is not there. If you think that a distributor is going to pick you up and sell your product for you, you're way wrong. No matter
No, you got to give them money. You got to give them time in the field.
you got to do all the things. And so learning how to be a supplier and the sales force, is different, because there are some places, and again, there's nothing wrong with this model at all, but they don't make their product. So they're also not concerned about that. They are purchasing their product, having somebody else, third party label it, so that they've got all that part done. And then they're just focused on selling it. And that's perfectly fine. We are a maker, so we are having to focus on compliance and sourcing and all of that. So it's just a little bit of a different dynamic for us to do both. Those are the two businesses I want to focus on. Again, that's why we stepped away from the tasting room model, because that was a third leg. We just can't do that. We
Can't do it.
can't handle all three simultaneously.
Well, I think it's the right decision for you guys.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think so
So you
too.
have
And
the resources and
like,
time.
we just have to hold on and hope it works.
Yeah, it can also it can be something that you do in the future once you can get distribution rolling and you're kind of going
Yeah.
and, growing 50% every week. And maybe you'll have more people to be able to have that again, but I think for now it's the right call. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What is your outlook? What are you looking for in 2024
Hmm.
besides the money?
Besides money, so I think that we are going to blow through our case count projection. And if we don't in 2024, I think that we will do it very quickly in the first quarters of 2025. And the reason I think that is because I can just see the momentum behind what we're doing. And again, just really hope that. But a lot of things can happen, and so I have to like hold on to what my goal is, and just hope that we're in good company and that we get the capital we need to do that. Because without it, honestly, we're just dead in the water, and that's just the reality. It's not anything but that reality. You run out of cash, you're done. Period. If you run out of resources, you're done. Period. It's that's just basics, right? So I think for me, my outlook is I do believe that we will find the right investment dollars to come in. And if that happens, or when that happens, we should have no problem hitting our case goals, because the product is so well received, and because we're at the right price, and because we have damn good liquid in the bottle. And so what I would love to
Yeah.
do is really just kind of focus on that.
So, Stephanie, a little bit about you. What do you do when you're not working? Like, what kind of movies do you like? What kind of music do you like? Do you still go see live music?
I do. I just recently saw Wilco for the first time, and I also saw Pearl Jam for the first time. That was really cool.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
I'll be honest, I was a little bit burnt out on live music for a minute because I had a live music venue and I had experience with that venue in general. Not because I don't love live music, but because for a while
It's a burnout.
I was a little bit burnt out. But like my son, he has this amazing band called Bovine here in Austin, and I love them. They have this really cool like indie sound. And then of course we were just at Levitation Fest, and so I got to see all kinds of cool bands and listen to all kinds of fun stuff. But when I'm not doing that, favorite movies, like I love a good documentary. Like give me the weirdest documentary of all time. I love it. I love indie flicks. And then I recently, I'll tell you about this one last, but outside of that, like I love yoga and going to the gym and stuff like that. I feel like that's a time when I turn on Mind Valley
You zone out.
I listen to it. And then most recently I invested in an Oculus, and specifically for this workout that's on there, and it's so fun. So I've gotten all of my friends like addicted to the Oculus too. So we have like our VR headsets. We're just like punching and kicking and squatting and doing all this fun stuff. And then it also makes the movie watching experiences pretty stellar in there.
I bet.
Yeah, it's really fun. But I love
Does that do the
Yeah, I'm a foodie, so I love to cook too.
Oh, yum. I love to eat. I cook, but I love to eat. What kind of dishes do you cook?
Oh gosh. You know, I love to be like eat clean, right? So I love like just whole stuff, like whether it's like a cedar flake salmon with like a couple sides or whatever, but I'm really good at Mexican food. So you can add a lot of cheese to it. Like I'm pretty good at that.
We eat a lot of Tex-Mex and Mexican food here.
Yeah, it's just so easy. So easy.
It's so good.
It's so easy to eat. It's just, it just smells good. It's good and saucy and all that stuff. So it's always a great
flavor, color, fresh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else, Stephanie, you want to talk about or mention before we head off? Maybe talk about your website?
Yeah. So our website is always a work in progress. A lot of the things that we're doing are always work in progress. Our social media is still just coming online. Even after 7 years, again, we went through this entire rebrand. So the website is islandgetawayrum.com. Same thing for like our Instagram handle. We always appreciate follows on that. And then we're about to reactivate our store so that you can actually purchase and go pick up bottles at the distillery coming up soon. Our production team is there Monday through Friday. So you can pick up bottles from us. But
nice.
We always encourage people to go to the actual store, right? Don't drive 75 miles to the distillery. Just pick one up at your local store. And so it's up to us to like get that word out there so that people request it, so that the stores buy it. And then when they do buy it, they go buy it from the store. So it's kind of a fun, it's like a cat and mouse game that we play all the time. But, yeah, so we're popping up all around Texas too. And so our website will have our kind of events page coming up as well, hopefully by the end of this week. That'll say like, hey, we're going to be in Rockport, we're going to be in, Louisiana, we're in New Orleans, we're in Shreveport, we're in Manhattan this weekend, doing this activation so that people can kind of see where we're growing to and understand, everything that kind of goes into this crazy business.
Yeah, right. So are you in like Specs and Total or in here in Texas?
So we are in Island Getaway Rum is in Total Wines in Austin, San Antonio area. Like I think there's like 10 stores there. You can still find remnants of high rum throughout Total Wines in Dallas and Houston. So we're working on the shift of that. So remember, like when you change your brand name, you still have to deplete the old bottles. It's not like those
you still have to
go away. Yeah, and then we're in 53 spec stores, which I'm very grateful for because they have put us in some of the more populated stores, like in the major cities, where Island Getaway wasn't already. So Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, and I'm grateful for that because Specs and Total Wine actually both have talked about their commitment to seeing Texas distilleries succeed, and I think that's important because again,
Yeah,
the store partner is so important. You know, that's where your
it
product
is.
moves. You've got to have it there, and you have to have those good relationships there, or else, you know, again, you're just fighting. You're fighting against the stream. So I love what they've done. They brought us into their stores, I think, in September. So we're still kind of new there. So our team is really working really hard to like make sure that they move off of the shelf and that we're doing tastings in the store and doing all the things that we need to do to introduce people to the brand so that it does start to kind of move on its own.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited for you guys. I think you're really in a good place this fall. If there's anything I can do to help you, of course, reach out. I'll do whatever I can. Certainly want to see you succeed and blow this brand out of the water. I had the chance to taste it at the expo when we met, and they're really amazing rums, all of them actually. And you have six different. Is it six different?
We have five. So
Five. Okay.
we have a craft answer to each of the major players in the rum market, in the rum space. And I think James has done a really phenomenal job just replicating what he's done over and over. So they still have that craft quality, but then they have consistency too. Which is really important. You know, you can't just make a different batch every single time, and people go like, "Wait a minute, I like the old batch better." You know, like
Right. This is different.
this is different. I don't think I like this one. That's not going to work. So, yeah. So again, it's like island inspired, Texas made, and we are that craft answer to all of those major brands. And we're
Nice.
hitting hard against their price points too. So I think, you know, and I hope and pray that all of that work that we've put into it really starts to show the fruits in 2024.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well said. Well put. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
And I'm
Well,
so
Stephanie, this
grateful
is
for being on your podcast. And this is so exciting to me because this is actually my first official podcast in the industry as a guest.
what?
Yeah.
You're kidding. Well, we got to change that.
I know. So I love it, and thank you for what you're doing because I think, you know, again, bringing awareness to the industry is so important. And hopefully, you know, we just keep growing and keep doing great things out there.
You will. I know it. I feel it. I can feel it from the energy that you bring to the table and behind this brand, and you put it out there. And you know, I wouldn't worry about the money because I think you're right. It's gonna come at the right time.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged. I'm excited. This is
you.
gonna be fun to watch you guys grow.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Well, I'm gonna sign off and I'll wave goodbye. And I wish you all the best of luck, and let's keep in touch.
Great. Thank you so much.
Next week, I'm speaking with Heather Ransom, founder and CEO of Zero Proof Go, an online directory and website dedicated to connecting people and venues with non-alcoholic options available to order. Heather is a veteran of the restaurant industry and has loved it since her first job as a waitress. She has moved up throughout all levels of the industry, including owning her own restaurant and bar for 20 years. She recently sold that venture this year. She's very active representing the restaurant owners and operators by being present in city and state level organizations that assist them. She's chapter president of the Bucks Month Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association and contributes to the workforce development and membership committees at the state level. Heather is also a consultant and restaurant tech leader and has honed in on those skills with her passion for non-alcoholic beverages to be considered in all establishments. It's imperative to have inclusion of all people without any judgment or stigma into the reasons one would ask for a non-alcoholic beverage at a restaurant. Everyone should feel comfortable and included as they spend time out with family and friends, enjoying their own party. You may see non-alc options on a menu in your local restaurant or see an item in your favorite retail store. However, there are many more hills to climb. With the countrywide local efforts of Heather and her team at Zero Proof Go, I am certain the message of profits and inclusion will be a part of an everyday discussion for all very soon. Mark your calendars now, as Zero Proof Go is sponsoring Happy Hour Happy for All Crawl on January 11th, 2024. As a consumer or retailer, you can join the fun in cities around the country. As a consumer or retailer, you can join the fun in cities around the country. Participating venues will have specialty non-alc drinks and cocktails for all to enjoy. For more information, please visit zeroproofgo.com. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week. This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.